What's up, Real World Podcast audience? On the phone with us, I have a guest, and I want this young lady to tell my Real World Podcast audience who you are.
All right. Well, first of all, my name is Orta. Who I am is I am a mother with a very interesting story. I'm not just an inmate. How far do you want me to tell you?
I want us to tell us how long. So far, you've been in prison now for what? How long you been in there for? 16 years?
17 years.
17 years. Okay.
17. Yep.
17. Okay. Now, within the 17 years of you being in prison, what have you been doing with yourself? Have you just been sitting around, getting in trouble? What have you been? Been taking classes? What is it that you've been doing? Share that with our audience.
Okay, well, the first 5 years of my sentence, I definitely was pretty much doing the same thing that I did on the streets. Getting into trouble, getting into fights, different things like that. I didn't really do drugs or anything, experimented with pills here and there, but, that wasn't really my jam. After about 5 years of getting into trouble, I realized that this really wasn't the route that I wanted to go, so I started taking groups and reading self-help books. And that started to open up different doors for me. So for the past, let's say 12 years, I have, become a certified personal trainer and a certified sports nutritionist through ISSA. And I actually started a fitness group here back in 2017. And we have a volunteer that comes in from the outside she owns her own gym in Columbus. So she comes in and she works with us and helps train like other people that wants to do, personal training. So I'm like the lead instructor here. So that's like my current passion right now. But I've also taken horticulture. I was an apprentice for horticulture where I got 3 different certifications. So I am a master gardener technician. I've done building maintenance. I've got my forklift, skid steer, aerial lift license, my HVAC license. I've done tons of different entrepreneur classes, college courses, sociology, all kinds of different random things. I just recently went to a Justice League training where I was in an intense 3-day-long training on how to be peer advisor within the institution to help people get their stories out with their cases, fight for their rights within the system and outside of the system. And I've also done a lot of classes for suicide prevention and for youth and youth mental health, because when I originally got involved in the state, I was 12 years old. So it started at a very young age for me. So my passion is to help those that are on their way to where I am today.
Great.
And I continue to do things. I'm also an institutional artist. There's 2 of us, as a matter of fact.
Great.
And I am the president of the Life Group, which is a group of lifers. I'm the president, so
Great.
I think that sums it up.
Great. Now, one moment the media could be your enemy, and then the next minute the media could be your friend. So I've seen in certain instances that you are in the media, you're in the newspaper, and they're writing good articles about you. Is this true?
All right, yeah, definitely.
Most definitely. Now, I saw it, but I want the audience to know here, coming from you, as being true. I don't want them to just say, Rel is just, going on and saying it's true, and she didn't say it was true. But okay, now Erica, we got to talk about a situation that happened August the 30th of 2004. It happened with your mother, and this is why you are in prison right now today. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, Erica. Now, the things I'm going to ask you is what I've seen in the media, and I want you, to clear it up. If it's right, if it's wrong, I want you to, just let us know, the Real World Podcast family, your side of the truth. Because, we don't want to bend nothing. We don't want to twist it. We want it directly coming from you. Is that good?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, let's roll right off into it, Miss Erica. Now, Erica, like I said, on August the 30th, 2004, did Mr. Joseph Williams and yourself drive from Lima, Ohio with the intent to kill your mother, Miss Diane Atkins?
Not with the intent, absolutely not. But yes, we did drive there.
Okay. Now, what was the reasoning that you guys drove there?
Okay, so I was living in Lima at the time. I'd been there for about 6 months. My father had just passed away. My mother and I had a very rocky relationship. I ended up moving there with a friend who had introduced me to Joe Williams, actually. I was selling crack, smoking crack, into that lifestyle or whatever. I ended up staying for a little while, and probably about 6 months down the road, I was just tired of it. I didn't want to be there anymore. I just didn't want to live that way. And I had asked Joe at the time if he would take me back to Defiance, because my mom was really the only person that I really had any type of relationship with. The rest of my family, they were all like rich and high and mighty and just really didn't have anything to do with us. And my mom, you know what I'm saying, I miss her. I love my mom. I always wanted a relationship with her. It just never happened that way. So I asked him if he would take me back so I could see if she would let me stay there. So that's how we ended up there in the first place. There was never any intent whatsoever, nothing like that.
Okay. Once again, that's why I always go to the source for the
Right.
truth, for their side of the truth, because police work is guesswork, and the media goes off of the police guesswork and what the prosecutors give them to report.
Yeah, and and the question, that I told them, because at first they tried to say that, it was planned, and I told them, I was like, well, here's the thing. I grew up on the streets, and I've done some things, I've hurt some people, I'm not even going to lie. But if I'm going to plan to kill somebody, I'm definitely not going to do it by strangling them. That was my thing. Like, well, I never really understood why they thought that I intended to do that.
Right, because that's like a crime of passion in the heat of the moment type thing, and that has been proven in a lot of situations. Now,
Absolutely.
Okay. Now I have another question I have to ask you. Now, is it true that you and Mr. Williams stopped at a supermarket along the way to buy a roll of duct tape?
Okay, so yes, as a matter of fact, we stopped, I want to say it was at Walmart before we ever went to her house. He had one of his friend's mom's cars, and it was one of those convertible.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Had like the vinyl top to it. In the corner of the back window was already duct tape, but it was flapping, and it started flapping on our way to Defiance. So he told me to show him where the Walmart was, because he wanted to stop there and get some tape so we could tape that window back.
Okay.
But so we ended up using the tape in the crime, which they made it sound like we stopped there purposely for it, and that wasn't the case at all.
Okay. Now, when you guys arrived at the home of Miss Atkins, in the police report, they say there was words exchanged. Is that true? And if so, what words was exchanged, and why were they exchanged?
Okay, so when we first got there, so my mom, she was an alcoholic, and the only way, she would go to bed at like 8 o'clock, so the only way to get her attention was to knock on her bedroom window. So that's what I did. That's what I've always done. It was just always our thing. Now mind you, I hadn't talked to her in like 6 months, so I didn't really know if she was going to answer or not. Well, she did. She ended up coming out to the driveway and, asked what I was doing, and I told her, I come to talk to her. And she actually let me in the house, and I asked her, I said, well, I have a friend with me, do you mind if he comes? And she said, yeah, sure, whatever. So Joe comes in there with me, and we sit down at the table, and I ask her how she's doing, and she tells me that she's filing bankruptcy, that her health isn't the greatest because she was a diabetic, and that she had quit using drugs and everything. And the moment that she told me that, I was super excited, because drugs was always the problem. She was the first person I ever did drugs with, and it was the issue in our relationship as an adult for me. So when she told me that, I'm thinking like, oh my God, I'm in luck. My mom is probably going to let me stay with her. We can have a relationship, blah, blah, blah. So she tells me all of this, and, I just asked her some random question like how she's been, what she's been doing, and she tells me. Well, then I had asked her if she had seen my kids, and, she told me she saw them at the grocery store or whatever, and so there was like a, little brief pause, because I was getting ready to ask her if I could come stay with her, but I had to get the balls first to do it. So I did, because I was so nervous. So in that moment, she had asked me if I had a hit. And I told her I didn't come there for that. And she was talking about crack. And my co-defendant was black. So anytime that I ever brought a black guy there, she always thought that, you know what I'm saying, that it was about drugs or whatever, which in the past was the case. So it was a good assumption. But I told her, I said, I didn't come here for that, Mom, and I thought you quit using and all of that. And she went Jekyll and Hyde on me. The other side came out. She started cussing at me, talking about, I don't know why you even came, and you ain't changed, and blah, 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 and just started saying all of this stuff. And I looked at Joe, and I just had tears in my eyes, and she just kept going on. And she had said something about my dad. And the last thing I knew was I jumped up, I grabbed her, I ended up blacking out, and that's when I strangled her. So the words that took place, I don't know exactly what they're talking about, but I think it was probably that exchange that they were referring to.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I do. Oh, the last thing that I said to her, I remember when I was on top of her before I blacked out, my hands were on her shoulders, and I was crying, and she was laying there, and I said, Mom, why couldn't you just love me? And she said, I do love you, and that's the last thing I remember.
Okay. So, as you reached over and jumped over the table, and you just grabbed her, and you were blacked out as you were strangling her. Okay.
Well, when I grabbed her, she was sitting in the chair. We were sitting at the kitchen table. Okay. And I jumped up and I grabbed like her shoulders. Okay. And we fell down on the floor. And then when I strangled her, it was in another room, and I don't remember that. That's where I blacked out. When I came back to was when I was on top of her, and we were in a completely different room. It was next to the kitchen.
Okay.
I don't know how we got there, though.
Okay. I'm glad you cleared that up.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
I'm glad that you cleared that up because I don't want it to seem as I'm saying some things that are wrong, and I want everything to be right as you telling your truth. You know what I'm saying? So just work with me here. If I say something wrong, let's clear it up and let's get it right. Okay.
I will.
Okay, good deal. Now, you early on you just said that you and your mother you did drugs together, and the first time you ever did drugs was with your mother. What drug was that, if you don't mind me asking?
Okay, so the first hard drug that I did with my mom was crack. I did it with both of my parents, for real. But okay, so I take that back. The first time that I did drugs was weed, but I never considered that drugs because I was raised to believe that because my parents grew and sold weed, so I never considered that a drug. So the actual first drug I did was weed, but it wasn't with my mom. The first hard drug I did was coke. I snorted coke with my mom and crack.
Okay.
Yeah, my mother was the one that actually introduced me to crack. I thought it was a big city thing. I didn't even think it existed in my town, didn't know anything about it. Oh, yeah, that was the first time, because both of my parents were big drug users. My dad was a little bit more in the closet with it. My mom was, she tried to hide some of it from me, but not really. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Now, would you say that you and your mother had a great relationship or a in-between relationship, or it was a bad relationship?
We had a terrible relationship. Terrible. I wouldn't even really consider it a relationship for real. Okay. And that was like a lot of my problems growing up because I never understood. I had friends who were so close to their mothers, so I had this idea of what I thought a mother-daughter relationship was supposed to be, and it just never was like that. But now I understand why.
Okay.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Okay. Now, after your mother was dead, is it true that you took the jewelry off of her body, and when you were arrested wearing your mother's jewelry? Is that true?
Okay, so here's the thing. So yes and no.
Okay.
Now, first of all, when I was arrested, they arrested me with a fake diamond tennis bracelet on that my co-defendant had given me probably several weeks before that. He had robbed somebody that I did not know at the time until after I caught this case, but he had robbed somebody prior to that and stolen a bunch of stuff, and he had given me that as a gift. I didn't know it then, though. Okay, so when I came back to and realized what was actually going on, something told me to take the jewelry off of her body and hide it. And that is exactly what I did. That what they didn't put in the paper was that the jewelry was still found in the house. I hid it in a jewelry box that my grandmother had given me when I was a child, and I put it underneath my mother's undergarments in her dresser. And I know why I did it now, but at the time, I didn't. It was just this intuition that I was supposed to do this. Well, after the fact, I realized my co-defendant had stolen things from her house while this was taking place, and I found that out when I was already in county. But they didn't tell him that they found the jewelry in the house.
Okay.